in the criminal justice system. And he's asked me to say that these are personal reflections about something that has not yet been resolved, and he felt it important to share, and I think it's very valuable indeed that he shared these. He felt it important to share these with us because they are at the heart of improving support for accused persons with learning disabilities. But because the matter's not resolved, because there's obviously a personal sensitivity, Steve's asked me to ask that discussion about it is really restricted to discussions that take place today in the various rooms and in the panel session, rather than taking it out of the room more generally, and I hope that we can respect that. So I'll ask Steve now to address us on his own personal experience. Thank you.
Just give me a minute just to get set up. Good morning. Is it on? Hi, good morning, everybody. Everybody here okay? And just want to thank QB for that introduction about explaining about just how I feel at the moment. So, thank you for that. And I'm Steve Robertson, as you know, and a few months ago I was the chairperson of People for Scotland, but not now. So, for those of you who do not know, People First is the national self-advocacy organisation for people with learning disabilities in Scotland. We are different from other advocacy organisations because we are run and controlled by the members who all have a learning disability. People First, along with our partners, ARC Scotland, are funded to deliver the SOLD project, which brings us here today. I have previously been a commission visitor for the Mental Welfare Commission, and at the moment I am also the chair of the Law and Human Rights Group of People First Scotland. Today I'm here to speak about the experiences of people with a learning disability in the criminal justice system, particularly our experience from the point of arrest up to the end of the court process. And as Sheriff QB said, this is an area which is personally important to me, and unfortunately I have very recent experience of this process. And so I would like to share my and other members' experiences with you, and then tell you about the type of support I think we need to ensure that people with a learning disability are treated equally and fairly in the justice system. I wanted to start with a bit about my previous experience, so that you understand that although I have a learning disability, I am used to dealing with various professionals and speaking in front of various audiences. So I am very grateful to have had these opportunities, which most people with learning disabilities don't always get. You might think they would stand me in good stead in understanding the justice system. Well, they don't. Before I tell you my story, I would just like to say a bit about some of the effects of a learning disability. A learning disability is a lifelong condition. That means people need help to understand new information, to learn new skills, and to cope independently. A person with a learning disability may need extra support to live independently and to cope with everyday activities. And people with a learning disability is very likely to have extra communication needs. This can make coping with situations involving lots of information very difficult and stressful. This can mean that people with learning disabilities are also often more suggestible and can be more easily influenced by others, especially if people misread what people say or imply, if that makes any sense. I would like you to keep these in mind through my story. Just again, I just want to say this in complete confidence. And just before I start, I just want to say bear with me because I might get a bit emotional because it's really quite difficult. Just a bit difficult, so if I get a bit emotional, I want to continue with this. The first thing that caught me out, so this is my story, the first thing that caught me out was the words the police used when they spoke to me on the phone. First of all, they just said, "We just want to talk to you about an incident. It's nothing to worry about." Easy for them to say. So I went to the after agreeing to meet them, I went to the station and they straight away read me my rights. I was really scared and it was totally unexpected. I'd heard the rights before, we'd only on TV programmes, but in reality it's totally different. They then took me to the desk and the officer brought out a bag which said prisoner and it had a number in it. Now I was really starting to panic. I was thinking, I'm going to be remanded in custody here. They're going to keep me in. I was meant to be meeting someone, a work colleague, and they would not let me call her. They said they would do it for me. I was now really terrified and already feeling like a criminal and as though I was guilty. They went through a booklet about my rights again. It was not very accessible and I was really struggling to be able to concentrate because everything was like a whirlwind at the time. Even though I said I understood, but now looking back there was lots of bits I didn't understand. But I was scared to say I didn't understand because I was worried that I would come across as being obstructive or that I was being difficult or not helpful. Then on top of that, I had to wait an hour and a half just to get a duty social worker to arrive to act as an appropriate adult. The police told me that she was only there to observe and that she could not have any influence on what I said. And when she arrived, I only had time to tell her my name and where I came from and that. Then we went straight into a small room and they gave me a phone. I was allowed to call a duty social solicitor and he advised me that, he said that I would be charged regardless, and that he strongly advised me to say no comment to all questions just now. Sorry. I felt really uncomfortable, nervous and isolated. I said to the appropriate adult that I didn't know what to do. I was worried that if I followed the solicitor's advice, I would look guilty, even though I wasn't. She told me that I should do what I am most comfortable with, otherwise not very reassuring. It was not until the end of the interview that they told me that if I'd said no comment, I could have went back to make a statement with a solicitor present. But nobody told me this before the interview. Not the solicitor, not the appropriate adult, not the police. While we were waiting for the interview to start, they were saying things about the incident, asking me questions about it. This threw me. I didn't know if it started or not. And then suddenly they said, yeah, we're now going to begin the interview. And I was really beginning to panic. I felt that if I didn't answer the questions, they would keep me longer. And honestly thought that if I seemed resistant, they would detain me. The officer said that it did not matter if I answered all the questions or not. I thought that meant it was okay to answer questions, and I hoped that if I answered everything, they would let me go. Because I had not committed any crime, so I answered every single question. But I understand now, I believe what it meant was that they were going to charge me whether I said no comment or not. Throughout the interview, the police were saying, take your time, there is no rush. But at other times, they were saying, the quicker we get this done, the quicker you can go home. So I found it all really confusing and hard to focus. So at the end of the interview, the police confirmed that I was being formally charged. I then had my fingerprints and photo taken and had to give a DNA sample, and I found this quite degrading. Before I went, I had to see a doctor. I had to see a police doctor. They were just asking about my mental health and how I was, and just if there was going to be any risk to myself or others. But after that, then they let me go. But I was really beginning to believe that we were going to remand me. Because I thought that would happen to everyone who was charged. I didn't understand what bail was or what it entails. Also think it's important to say a bit about the appropriate adults now, because I have heard from other members that they had similar experiences. The appropriate adult had no time with me prior to the interview to help gauge my level of understanding or my ability to communicate. During the interview, she did not clarify my rights, if there was any impact to answering questions or not, or what certain words and terms meant, like what bail is. Being completely honest, the appropriate adult was ineffective for me, to say the least. And she said, trying to reassure me, it's okay, the police at the station are really good with people with learning disabilities. I don't know what she meant by this, but it didn't help me understand what was going on. So at the end of the process, I asked her, after I left, I asked if I could speak to her about a few things just to make sure I'd understood. But she said she didn't have the time, and she gave me a phone number. And that number was to call to let the Crown Office know that I have a learning disability and that I should get myself a solicitor. And the best bit about that is that when I phoned the Crown Office, they said that they couldn't entertain me because they were the prosecution. So I don't know why she gave me the number, that number. So at that point, I really felt abandoned and isolated. So then I had to go about finding a solicitor. And because I'd never been in this situation before, I didn't know where to start. At first, I was just going to go look around locally to see if there was one there. And it was actually my wife who suggested speaking to people first about it. And I'm so glad I did now. They helped me find a good solicitor and helped them understand my learning disability. I was really nervous about meeting my solicitor for the first time because I didn't know what to expect. It also helped that I had my advocate there, and that was Penny sitting here, who's been advocating for me. They helped put my mind at ease and explain things more clearly. And I think that is vitally important, that support is available at this time. So the solicitor then took me through the process of from a plea hearing, and then the intermediate diet, and then finally the trial. It took me a long time to get my head around the process. At these points, I kept thinking I could be remanded, especially when I saw a G4S guard standing near me in the court. I needed some reassurance, because I honestly thought, and they're sitting next to you, you're not going out. You're not going out. I was able to get lots of reminding by my advocate that people first and my solicitor. And my solicitor always explained the process clearly. These things really did help. Even with some support, the time between the arrest and the different hearings is difficult. I could not stop thinking about it. Millions of thoughts go through your head. Especially from the arrest to the first hearing was 2 months. So 2 months I had to absolutely nothing. So you can imagine for the trial, my solicitor was able to get special measures put in place. And these were extra time for me to check his understanding things. And I was allowed to have a supporter sitting beside me in the dock. These things were reassuring, but of course, it is still very difficult and nervous and anxious. But for me, this has been an eye-opening experience into the workings of the justice system. And I think this is important. Even with support, it has still been extremely difficult and stressful. Now, I can't even imagine how difficult it would have been without the proper support. And for most of the people with learning disabilities who've been involved in the SOUL project, coping without support was the harsh reality. And I don't think that is good enough. And to be honest, I think that is unacceptable. I would now like to tell you a bit about what I would like to see for people with learning disabilities. I want to be able to access the justice system on a level playing field. But in order to do that, like other people with learning disabilities, I need support. Proactive support from someone who is there for us, and as soon as possible after arrest until the end of the court process. And also beyond that too. Because it's saying beyond that too, and that's just to say that the after effects of whatever the decision is, even if somebody's cleared, it can still have a psychological effect on people, and that support needs to be maintained, but that's further discussion for another day. This support needs to come from someone who understands the criminal justice system and knows how to support people with a learning disability. We need support to understand the charges, the process and our rights, and support to remind us of these things as often as we need. Support which makes sure we understand what police and others are asking us. Helping us think through questions when we are asked. Support by someone who could advise our solicitors, the police, sheriffs and others about communication, because they have had the time to establish and understand our individual communication support needs. Support that will spot and be allowed to step in if the process becomes too difficult, and then advise if we need a break or if something should be changed to make things work better. I'm not talking about support which will give someone a learning disability an unfair advantage or to completely remove the pressure of being questioned. I'm talking about support which is reasonable and which makes the process fair. I'm not challenging being arrested or going to court to be difficult whether you have a learning disability or not. But is it fair for it to be much more difficult for some with a learning disability? Thankfully for me and many people with learning disabilities, society has moved on from a time when people with learning disabilities were often locked up in hospitals simply because they had a disability. In most cases, people with learning disabilities are now able to live in the community with access to the same services as everyone else. And key to allowing this to happen is support being made available. Support to allow us to overcome the barriers which result from our disability. Whether it is support to manage your tenancy, support to manage employment, or support to engage with education. Don't get me wrong, in many cases it is difficult for people with learning disabilities to get enough support for these things. And most people with learning disabilities do not get the support we need to live as full a life as we would like. And we all need to keep working to improve this. But in an area as important as the justice system, where equity and fairness are key, it is not good enough to not get the support we need, or for that support to depend on being lucky enough to know a particular organisation, which I was lucky enough to have, or to come across someone with some specialist knowledge by coincidence. in an area as important as justice, that support needs to be guaranteed. It needs to be a right. Under equality law, people with disabilities are entitled to expect reasonable adjustments. From the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, we are entitled to equal recognition before the law and fair access to justice. That is what I'm talking about. Support which makes a reasonable adjustment to the system. Support which provides fair access to justice. Finally, I want to be clear. I do not think people with learning disabilities should be kept away from the justice system because it is difficult, complicated, or stressful. Even though it's a really difficult time at the moment, I'm still glad I was not diverted from being able to have a fair trial. As I'm aware, other members of People First who have been diverted from the justice system without the chance to stand trial, and the outcome for them is definitely not more just or fairer. So I'm not asking for sympathy or for my support needs to be medicalised or to be singled out. I'm simply saying that I, like all people with learning disabilities, deserve the right to fair access to justice. In order to allow that to happen, there needs to be adjustments available. And for me and other people with learning disabilities who have shared their experience with the SOUL project, the key one of these is good support being available right throughout the process, not in parts, right through and beyond. So now seems to be the perfect time for the changes to be made to allow this to happen. As you may be aware, the Scottish Government are currently in the process of considering the provision of appropriate adult services. I and others in People First are really glad this is happening, but we are concerned that the changes being considered may not fully address the needs of people with learning disabilities and will not provide the type of support I've been talking about this morning. We do not want to look at every slight change to what happens already, which will not make a difference. We want a broad discussion to look at support being available to truly make the process fair for people with learning disabilities accused of committing offence from the point of arrest right through to commencing any sentence if given. I think that if we are considering making changes to the current system, then we should be looking to make the Scottish justice system the world leader for equality and fair justice, fair access to justice for people with learning disabilities. I just want to say thank you for listening to me today. And it has been difficult to talk about my experience because it's still quite fresh in the memory for me. And I know there are others who have contributed to the work of the SOUL Network who also have difficult stories to tell. Some of them are here today, and I know they are also committed to change things to make the process fairer in the future. We had hoped to now be able to show you a short film with our members speaking about their experience. Unfortunately, because of some technical difficulties, it seems to be a week for it, we won't be able to show the film today. But we hope to make it available on the SOUL website in the near future. Because there's no, I think people want to ask any questions. Oh, sorry. I've said it many times, sorry. Sorry, I apologise for that. So I'm now going to hand you back to Sheriff QB to introduce the next speaker. And thank you for listening.
very much. That was a very powerful account. Impressively not looking for sympathy, but just looking